have a question that might make you, our listener, just a little paranoid today. How much of what you are feeling right now, like right this very second, is actually coming from you?
Oh, wow. That is a heavy way to start a Thursday.
I know. But I'm serious. How much of it is you, and how much is just you reacting to a performance? Whether it's a movie villain that makes you physically recoil, or a crowd making you do something you'd never do alone.
Or even chatting with a customer service bot that seems to, really get you.
Exactly. Someone or something is pulling the strings.
It's the old battle of perception versus reality. We all walk around thinking we're these highly rational, independent detectives analyzing the world. But the research, the actual data shows we're incredibly easy to hack. Our brains are just wired for suggestion.
And that is exactly the rabbit hole we are jumping down today. Welcome to the deep dive. It is Thursday, February 26, 2026, and we've got a stack of sources today that looks like a complete garage sale of random topics.
It really does.
We're talking cinematic breakdowns of The Silence of the Lambs, 18th century French hypnotists, the Meisner acting technique, AI ethics, and practical psychology.
It sounds like a mess on paper, I agree. But there was a very specific thread tying all of these together. Our mission today is to look at the actual mechanics of human connection.
Right. How we fake it, how we scientifically measure it, and ultimately how we can master it.
Let's start with the faking it part, because the source material we have on The Silence of the Lambs completely changes how you watch that movie.
It blew my mind. I mean, I've seen it a dozen times. I know Hannibal Lecter is scary. I didn't think I needed an essay by Derek Jacobs to tell me why a cannibal is frightening.
Well, that's the trick. You think he's scary just because of the dialogue or the teeth. But Jacobs breaks down that very first meeting between Clarice Starling and Dr. Lecter and argues that the fear is technically engineered. It's the math of the camera.
Okay, but Anthony Hopkins is terrifying on his own. You could film him on a shaky phone camera in a parking lot and he'd still be nightmare fuel. Is it really just camera angles?
It plays a much bigger role than you'd think. Jacobs points out what he calls shot one. Clarice is walking down this dark prison hallway. Now, normally, a director would pan the camera to show the environment, show the scale of the prison.
Set the scene.
Right. But here, the camera takes Clarice's exact point of view. It creates a frame within a frame. You see the cell bars, and dead center, perfectly still, is Lecter.
Yeah, that stillness. Hopkins apparently decided to do that because he knew everyone expected a criminally insane person to be, pacing around or twitching, and he just stood there like a statue.
And that stillness is a massive power move. But here's the part that subconsciously just messes with you as a viewer. Jacobs calls it the empathy machine.
I love that term.
It's a great concept. In traditional film theory, usually only the protagonist looks directly into the camera lens. It's called breaking the fourth wall.
Like Deadpool. Or Ferris Bueller.
Exactly.
Oh.
It makes the audience identify with him. It makes them your buddy. But in this scene, Lecter doesn't. When he talks to Clarice, he is looking right down the barrel of the lens.
So he's looking right at me.
He is looking at you. The camera visually puts you in Clarice's shoes, but then Lecter makes direct eye contact with the viewer. It forces this incredibly uncomfortable intimacy. You aren't watching an interrogation anymore. You feel like you are the one being interrogated.
Which explains why I always feel like I need to hold my breath when he's on screen.
It's a predatory technique, and it actually gets worse. Jacobs highlights shot 43. It's an 18-second long tracking shot. Clarice sits down, and the camera angle makes her look visually smaller and smaller, while Lecter just looms massive in the frame.
He establishes total dominance without ever raising his voice.
Precisely.
It's weaponized visual silence, which actually connects perfectly to this other piece in the stack by Catherine Stroller. She wrote about these awesome acting moments of stillness.
Yes, visual silence is such a brilliant phrase.
She argues that inexperienced actors, and frankly just insecure people in everyday life, feel this constant need to fidget. We move around just to prove we're alive in the scene.
We fill the space with noise, even visual noise.
But the most commanding performances come from a total, absolute lack of movement. She brings up Morgan Freeman in Sesame.
A perfect example. He spends half of that movie literally just sitting in a chair. He doesn't twitch, he doesn't play with his tie, he just is.
And Glenn Close, Dangerous Liaisons.
Oh, the makeup scene.
Yes. At the very end, she's just removing her makeup in total silence. It draws the audience in so powerfully because your eye goes straight to the person who isn't moving. You're waiting for the signal. Fidgeting just blocks the moment.
So if you want to be the most powerful person in a boardroom, stillness is your best tool. There's a massive difference between being frozen and being present. If you're just stiff, you look terrified.
Which brings us from the result of a performance performance to the actual technique behind it. We have this guide from backstage on the Meisner technique.
Specifically the repetition exercise.
I have to be honest, I looked at this and it sounds ridiculous on paper. You have two grown adults sitting across from each other just saying the exact same phrase back and forth.
Right, like you have a blue shirt.
I have a blue shirt. You have a blue shirt. How on earth does saying that 50 times help anyone act?
It absolutely looks like madness from the outside. But think about what happens in a normal conversation. While you're talking to me, I'm usually in my own head planning what I'm going to say next.
Guilty.
We all do that. The repetition exercise forces you to stop planning. If the only words you're allowed to say are, you have a blue shirt, you completely stop worrying about the script. All your attention shifts to how the other person said it.
Oh, I see.
If I say it aggressively, you instinctively snap back. If I say it softly, you might lean in. It strips away the intellectualizing. Meisner called it getting to the reality of doing.
So it bypasses the brain and gets straight to the instinct. You respond truthfully to the other person.
Exactly. Which is wonderfully ironic because the next part of our deep dive is about how easily our instincts can be hijacked and how we can be convinced that a totally fake performance is real reality.
Yes. We are going from Hollywood straight to the history books. We've got this wild story from the Public Domain Review about Franz Mesmer and the whole craze of animal magnetism.
18th century Paris. It was a complete sensation. Mesmer essentially convinces the French elite that there's an invisible magnetic fluid connecting all living things in the universe.
Like the Force in Star Wars.
Very much like that. And he claims he can manipulate this fluid to cure illnesses.
And he had this elaborate prop for his sessions, the baquet.
The baquet was a giant wooden tub filled with water and iron filings. He'd have his wealthy patients sit around it in a circle, holding these iron rods that stuck out of the tub.
While he played eerie music on a glass harmonica, it sounds like a spooky Victorian escape room.
It was pure theatricality. But the crazy thing is it worked. Or at least people genuinely thought it would. They would go into these violent physical convulsions. They would faint. People claimed their chronic pain was gone, or their blindness was cured. It became mass hysteria.
Until the King of France got suspicious and called in the absolute 18th century A-team to investigate.
The Royal Commission. And the lineup is incredible. It was led by Benjamin Franklin, who was the American ambassador at the time, and it included the pioneering chemist Lavoisier and Dr. Guillotin.
Yes, the guy the guillotine is named after. I just love the visual of Ben Franklin, founding father, just walking into this bizarre seance and going, nope, we're testing this.
Franklin was brilliant here. They basically invented the placebo-controlled blind trial just to debunk Mesmer. They set up these elaborate experiments.
The tree test is my favorite.
It's so revealing. Mesmer's assistant claimed he had magnetized an apricot tree in Franklin's own orchard.
Which is already a ridiculous concept, a magnetic apricot tree.
So Franklin brings in a 12-year-old boy, blindfolds him, and tells him to walk through the orchard and find the magnetized tree. The boy walks around, hugs a few random trees. Nothing happens. Then, at the fourth tree, which was just a totally normal, non-magnetized tree, the boy goes into violent convulsions and passes out cold.
Because he thought it was the magic tree. And they did something similar with water, right? The cup test.
Yes. They gave a woman several cups of water. She drank normal water and was fine. But when she drank a cup that she was told had been magnetized by Mesmer, even though it hadn't been, she moodily did, she immediately had a full-blown physical crisis.
It's hilarious, but also kind of terrifying. Franklin proved that this magnetic fluid totally didn't exist. But in doing so, he proved that the human imagination placebo effect is powerful enough to cause severe physical reactions.
The fluid wasn't real, but the suggestion was. Which brings us perfectly to the modern-day master of suggestion, Darren Brown. We have the transcript from his social experiment special.
The lucky dog experiment. This one genuinely made me rethink my own mindset.
It is a masterful demonstration of how belief shapes reality. Brown goes to this small town and secretly spreads a rumor that a local dog statue brings good luck if you touch it.
And then he focuses on this one specific guy, Wayne the Butcher.
Right. And Wayne's defining characteristic in life is that he firmly believes he is profoundly unlucky.
He's the townie, or just a dark cloud over his head.
So Brown sets up these tests. He literally places a winning scratch card worth a brand new television right on the sidewalk in Wayne's path.
And Wayne just walks right past it, doesn't even look down.
Then Brown hires an actor to stand on the street corner with a clipboard, offering 20 pounds in cash to anyone who can answer a ridiculously simple question. Wayne ignores them completely.
Because his internal script is, I am unlucky. So his brain literally filters out the good things right in front of him.
He is blind to opportunity because of his expectations. But then, the turn happens. Brown engineers a situation where Wayne touches the lucky dog statue.
And suddenly, Wayne thinks his look has magically changed.
Exactly. He starts acting differently. He takes risks. He starts noticing things. It culminates with him actually betting his own money on a die roll because he now believes he has the statue's luck on his side.
It's the placebo effect all over again. Wayne created his own luck just because a piece of stone gave him the psychological permission to do so.
But Brown also showed the very dark side of this kind of influence.
The game show experiment, this one was actually hard to read about.
It's a study in de-individuation. Brown puts an audience in a room. He gives them all masks, so they're totally anonymous, and gives them keypads to vote on what happens to a guy named Chris, who is out on a Friday night and has no idea he's being filmed.
It starts out as just silly pranks, but the crowd mentality takes over.
The escalation is terrible. The anonymous crowd votes to have Chris's clothes stolen at a bar. Then they vote to have him publicly accused of a crime he didn't commit.
And by the end, they literally vote to have him kidnapped. These are perfectly nice, normal people who would hold the door for you or return a lost wallet.
But you put them in a crowd, you give them a mask to remove their individual identity, and they turn nasty. They're performing the role of the mob.
Just like the boy performed the role of the magnetized patient. We look around for cues on how to behave, and if the cue is, we're being cruel tonight, most people just follow the script.
We are social creatures. We conform.
So we are manipulated by camera angles, we're manipulated by guys in robes with iron tubs, and by the roar of the crowd. But now, in 2026, we have a completely new puppet master. And this one doesn't even have a pulse.
You're talking about artificial intelligence. And the source material here makes a very compelling argument that AI is essentially Mesmerism 2.0.
This is from the paper on AI mimicking humans. And they bring up the Eliza effect, which I hadn't heard of before.
Eliza was one of the very first chatbots built back in the 1960s. It was incredibly simple. It basically just parroted your own statements back to you in the form of a question.
Like a really basic therapist. I feel sad. Why do you feel sad?
Exactly. The researchers found that people formed deep emotional bonds with this simple code. They projected humanity and empathy onto a machine that had neither.
And now we have AI influencers. Like Lil McKella, she's a completely virtual character on social media, but she has millions of followers. She promotes lifestyles, she sells clothes. People engage with her as if she's a real teenager.
We are so desperate for connection that we fill in the blanks. And the paper dives into AI companions, like the Replica app,
where people customize these bots to be their friends or even their romantic partners.
The authors highlight a massive ethical danger here. They call it the companionship alienation irony.
Explain that.
If you are deeply lonely and you turn to an AI that is explicitly programmed to agree with you, to flatter you, and to never challenge you, you might feel a temporary relief. But you are essentially using technology to cure loneliness, which ultimately makes you more alienated from actual messy human beings.
Because real humans argue back, real humans have boundaries, you're just talking to a funhouse mirror.
Exactly, and the same risk applies to therapy bots like Wobot.
Right, people open up to Wobot about their trauma.
And the risk is that vulnerable users attribute genuine care to a system that absolutely cannot feel. The paper asked a tough ethical question. Is it morally acceptable for a machine to output the text string "I care about you"?
That is a great question. Because it's counterfeiting human empathy. Just like Hannibal Lecter staring into the camera to hack our brains, the AI is calculating the statistical probability that saying, "I care about you," will keep you engaged on the app. It's technically a lie.
It is a performance. And it goes both ways. The paper also critiques emotion detection AI.
Oh, where the computer scans your face to tell if you're happy or lying?
Yes. It's increasingly used in hiring interviews, or even by law enforcement. And the source flat out argues this is junk science.
They called it digital phrenology.
Which is pretty damning. It assumes that a scowl means the exact same thing in every culture across the globe, or that fidgeting means you're guilty. It relies on massive stereotypes. But because it's a computer algorithm doing the judging, we give it authority.
We trust the math more than we trust ourselves. Okay, so let's take a breath here. Because looking at this stack, we are surrounded. We've got actors using stillness to dominate us, crowds manipulating our morals, and algorithms hacking our basic human functions. It feels like walking through a minefield. How do we actually defend ourselves?
The good news is the stack offers highly practical solutions. and they all fundamentally come back to regaining control of your own attention.
Starting with active listening, which I'll admit usually sounds like a corporate HR buzzword to me.
It does get overused in seminars, but the grand rising behavioral health source breaks down the actual mechanics of it. Real active listening is the exact opposite of what most of us do naturally.
Because naturally when you're talking, I'm just waiting for a gap so I can jump in with my story.
Right, but active listening requires engaging, reflecting, and questioning. It's about perspective taking.
They talked about looping. If you tell me you're really stressed at work, I don't immediately say, oh, me too, my boss is the worst.
Exactly. You validate their reality first. You say, it sounds like you're feeling incredibly overwhelmed and unsupported right now. You actively try to see the issue from their view.
Which builds actual trust. You can't de-individuate someone, you can't treat them like a mob if you are forced to articulate their specific individual pain.
It forces genuine connection. And they also highlight the importance of boundaries in this. Setting physical, emotional, and time boundaries isn't putting up walls, it's defining where you end and the other person begins. That's essential for healthy connection, not just endless openness.
Which leads into the most surprising tool in our stack today, musical intelligence.
Howard Gardner's theory.
Yeah. I always thought musical intelligence just meant you were, a prodigy at the piano.
That's the common myth. But the paper from the International Journal of Therapy and Rehabilitation redefines it. Musical intelligence isn't just about musical talent. It is a specific cognitive intelligence for recognizing patterns, rhythm, and emotion.
They called it auditory IQ, and it connects the left and right hemispheres of the brain.
Right, and you can actually train it. The source suggests practical things like actively listening to the layers of sounds in nature, or playing Name That Tune, or learning an instrument.
But how does playing Name That Tune protect me from a manipulative AI or a mob?
Because it trains your brain to hear the rhythm of a situation. If you have high musical intelligence, you can hear when a conversation is suddenly offbeat. You can hear the scripted, repetitive rhythm of a sales pitch versus a genuine plea.
Oh, wow. So you can hear the cadence a politician uses to whip up a crowd?
Yes. You aren't training to join an orchestra. You are training to hear the underlying music of manipulation. Once you hear the pattern, you don't get swept away by it.
That is fascinating. And the final tool to anchor all of this is mindfulness.
Yes, from the Mayo Clinic.
But I want to be clear to you listening, they're not talking about the cliche of sitting cross-legged on a mountain trying to empty your brain.
The Mayo Clinic is very clear on this. You cannot clear your mind. Trying to think about nothing is impossible. Mindfulness is simply shifting your brain from a state of judgment to a state of observation.
Moving from judgment to observation. They suggest starting with the body scan. Just mentally checking in with your physical self. My toes feel tight, my shoulders are raised.
Or mindful walking. Literally just focusing your entire attention on the physical sensation of your feet hitting the ground.
Which sounds too simple to work against things like AI or mob mentality.
But think back to the tree test in the 18th century. That boy fainted because his mind was entirely consumed by the expectation and judgment of the situation.
Right.
If he had been practicing mindfulness, if he had just focused on the actual physical sensation of his hands touching the bark, thinking this is just rough, cold wood, he never would have focused.
You would have felt the bark, not the magic.
Grounding yourself in physical reality is your ultimate defense mechanism. It breaks the placebo effect. It breaks the mob mentality. And AI can mimic human words perfectly, but it absolutely cannot mimic the feeling of your own feet on the floor.
So, synthesizing this whole journey today, we started with the sheer illusion of connection. How an actor uses stillness and a camera lens to hack our empathy.
How an 18th century showman hacked our beliefs with invisible magnets.
And how modern AI hacks our loneliness with perfectly calculated lines of code.
The through line is that our brains desperately want to believe the performance. We want to fall for the trick.
But we don't have to. We can counter it with the actual practice of connection, by active listening and looping back what people say, by using musical intelligence to hear the rhythm of a lie, and by just feeling our feet on the ground and realizing, hey, I'm not being magnetized right now. I'm just a person touching a tree.
It's about building the discernment to notice when you are acting, when you are the audience, and having the power to choose to step out of the theater entirely.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, here's a final thought for you to explore on your own. If a great actor can make you cry, and a fake placebo can make you physically pass out, and a string of code can make you feel genuinely loved,
And they can.
then how much of your daily reality, the life you are living right now, is actually being generated by your own expectations rather than the world itself?
That is the real question to sit with.
Thank you so much for diving deep with us today. We'll see you next time.